Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, we are going to be going over the full build showcase for the Rip Blood Necromancer. So I actually made a video about this recently, and this is going to be more of an update to that build as I have fully fleshed out the concept with some gear and actually pushed some corruption. Now, I was going to push more corruption, but there was two problems standing in my way. One, time. I have a lot of things to do before release happens, a lot of builds to play. So I was like, okay. And minion builds are notoriously slow at building corruption, so it's just kind of a slog, as it always is when with minion builds. And two, I messed up with my gearing. I did not prioritize minion health on a lot of my pieces on my legendary slams, so I actually ended up with let's say 600% increase minion health. Now, if you're being serious about this build and wanted to push it higher, I'd heavily suggest something like 800 to 900 to 1000%. And also, as well, on top of that, you should be stacking intelligence. It's just I did not prioritize my gear correctly, which we will talk about later in the video. Now, if you haven't already, I'd heavily suggest leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel, as that is the best way of currently supporting me. Now, let's talk about this, shall we? So the whole concept of the build is we're utilizing interaction with Rip Blood and Bone Curse. So there's a node that causes Bone Curse to cast Rip Blood for you once it times out. Making it time out, there's a few ways of doing it, but the way that we're doing it is utilizing Illusion of Pain. So we cast Bone Curse on enemies, and then we hit them, and then it casts a bunch of Rip Bloods. And as you can tell, whenever I'm like in monoliths and stuff like that, it's absolutely glorious. You just see fountains of blood everywhere. It is absolutely amazing. But the biggest problem with a concept like this is Bone Curse has a cooldown, first things off, when you have it with Illusion of Pain. So that's a big problem. You also have problems with just applying more Red Bloods on a single target, because we're not scaling cast speed at all, to be honest. So that means that, I couldn't just swap to Rip Blood single target. That wouldn't work well, right? Because when you have a pack of enemies and you cast a bunch of Rip Bloods, those Rip Bloods, they shotgun each other and stuff like that, and that's why our clear is so good. But once we get to a single target, that's a problem because we don't have that many Rip Blood casts that you normally would have because you only have one enemy. But we have a solution, and that is thankfully to the node that allows us to apply Bone Curse to our minions. This makes it so that we can apply Bone Curse to them, hit them with our Marrow Shards, which then, of course, pops the Rip Bloods, which means, of course, we cast a bunch of new Rip Bloods based on our minion count. Right now, I decided to go with Summon Skeleton. That is because it is the easiest way of getting a bunch of minions very quickly. They're very easy resummonable, and they can actually get pretty tanky if you scale them properly, which I did not in this footage. If you're properly scaling these minions, you probably wouldn't have to recast and resummon them all the way up to like 700 corruption, nonetheless, the 400 that I'm currently running. So, yeah, the idea, cast Bone Curse on our minions, then we hit them and time out the Bone Curse with Illusion of Pain, and then those cast Rip Bloods. And then after that, our I think it's called I can't remember what it's called, but it will make it so that we apply Bone Curse multiple times on hit as well with a 1 second cooldown, and that cast can apply Bone Curse to our minions, so we actually can cast a very large amount of Rip Bloods in a very short amount of time. Now, of course, if you had better gear than me, you could put cooldown on your setup and actually get this to almost 100% uptime, because you have a 6 second cooldown on the Illusion of Pain node, and then you have about 3 seconds of duration on Cursed Limbs, which is the name of the node. I forgot. There you go. And that is because Illusion of Pain halves the duration of course, Cursed Limbs. So if we scale some cooldown on Illusion of Pain, we can actually maintain 100% uptime, which would boost our DPS significantly. It's just the problem is we're playing an HP build, and with the way HP builds work, you want HP in every single slot you possibly can get it. Right now, I'm pushing over 4K life. That will feel comfortable all the way to like 600, 700 corruption. But like I said, I didn't push corruption with this because, let's be real, pushing corruption with minion builds is very painful and very slow, but it's whatever. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the intro of this build. That's how this build works. All right, so here we are in game with the character. Let's go over the skills, shall we? So for Bone Curse here, the most important node here, of course, is Illusion of Pain. Then we hit our allies or enemies and it triggers the Bone Curse and it turns it off, which then triggers our Crimson Enlightenment. As you can tell, I can show you here. I cast it, and then look at that, a bunch of Rip Bloods on the target. They actually auto-target for you, which is very, very good, as it means you can actually clear the screen very quickly with this kind of build. And of course, Cursed Limbs, of course, which goes down to 2.5 seconds because of Illusion of Pain. This recast Rip Blood for you, as you can tell. You can see it's recasting Rip Blood, and if your minions are on the target, they actually get cast with Rip Blood as well. I mean, Bone Curse, which means, you can actually keep up the buff, which is great. Now, one last note here. We care about Merciless here because this applies to our minions. So as you can tell, it applies Bone Curse to our minions. So they actually get the, Bone Curse, which then casts a Rip Blood for us, which is great. And that's pretty much it for Bone Curse. Then for Rip Blood here, it's a very specific setup. I have a +4. If you do not have a +4, I would suggest just taking nodes out of Revile. But essentially, the idea is getting the more damage here for Rip Blood, of course, getting double splatter because that adds our AoE significantly, right? Then we also grab Hematology and Quenching. This both together means that we can actually sustain ourselves with our own Rip Bloods. These little blood orbs, they actually give us a lot of healing, and that makes up for the fact that we're not actually using Leech at all. We're actually turning off our Leech for a massive damage boost. So if you go over to our tooltip here, if we unspec out of Hollow Lich here, as you can tell, we are gaining a very large amount of percent damage. I think a very large amount of percent damage from this, from having our Leech turned off, which is great. And how we're able to sustain our HP after this is a combination of course, Valdir's Chalice giving us a lot of health on kill, and also Rip Blood giving us a lot of health with the little blood orbs. That's actually why I'm not running Blood Catalyst. If you actually turn off the Leech node and go for Blood Catalyst, you can actually afford to take out the Blood Orb stuff and go for Blood Catalyst instead, if you were to go for Leech instead of what I'm going here. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Rip Blood. Marrow Shards, main thing we care about is apathy, minion friendly fire. It means that we hit our minions and they pierce through all the minions, which is great. You do not want to grab these nodes here, bone splinters or whatever, because it makes it so that because the bone splinters can't hit the minions, but the actual Marrow Shards itself can. So you want to stay away from these nodes. You just care about this. You just care about the Marrow Orb stuff, right? And that will make it so that we can actually hit our own minions and proc all of our Rip Bloods. Essentially what this does is it makes it so that we don't have to scale into cast speed to cast a bunch of Rip Bloods very quickly, which is cool. Dreadshade here, the stereotypical Dreadshade setup, like nothing too crazy here, mainly just getting the 60% more damage, the curse, you're affected by the aura, the buff effect based on the enemy's HP, stuff like that. Nothing too crazy. I just grabbed a little bit of extra ailment chance here with the poison chance, and the dam chance is very small amount of extra damage, but it does scale with buff effect, and like we'll take damage where we can get it, obviously. Then for our skeletons, this is very, very specific. Now, one thing I would suggest eventually is maybe getting +1 to level of like skeleton on the chest or something like that, or something like that, because getting extra points into Marrow Tap make them significantly tankier, as having physical resistance makes it so that they can actually tank our own damage. As you can tell, they take a lot of damage from our own damage, and that is because we actually do a decent amount of damage to them, which is crazy, to be honest, if you think about it. But yeah, getting extra nodes into Marrow Tap here. But let's talk about the rest of the tree. Of course, we're grabbing all the extra skeletons, right? Removing archers. We want them to be next to the enemy. We don't want archers, and we don't want the ranged kind of enemies, allies. That's because we want them to bunch up so that we can hit them all with our Marrow Shards with one cast. If they're arranged, there'd be a bunch of them everywhere, and you don't want that. You want them to be bundled up. So having the melee minions is much better. Of course, heal skeleton on death. This actually helps you. So like for instance, if you took a bunch of damage to lose like half your skeletons, the other half wouldn't die, which is great. Healing them up to full, which is great, right? Bone armor. with some cooldown actually is really strong, as it reduces damage taken for 40%, which is great. It means that they can actually face tank a lot of things, and once you actually start scaling their HP properly, unlike me, they feel much tankier. And of course, the mana efficiency and empty the grave, so that when they do die, you can easily resummon them. Now, let's talk about their survivability and what I did wrong. So if I look over in Minion survivability here, in Minion HP, I have one mod of Minion health regen, which is plenty, right? One is plenty for the most part. But my problem is I only have 600% Minion health regen. I could have Minion health here. There was actually a tier 7 that was here that I could have rolled for Minion health, but I rolled the fizz damage percent, which is fine, but I'm not going to re-roll my entire gear just to fix this. And of course, Valor's Chalice here, this could actually be Minion health percentage as well. Now, another way that you could scale more damage is these things that are damage percent. Those could actually be intelligence instead. If these were intelligence, that would actually raise their base stats significantly and actually make them significantly tankier. So I would heavily suggest investing more into intelligence and more into minion health percent, and your minions will actually be godly at that point, and they'll easily be able to be pushed to like 700 corruption. And like I said, the best thing about Necromancer minions is if they die, guess what? You can just resummon them. It's pretty easy. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the skeletons. Let's talk about the gearing, the passives. So the most important passives. Grabbing as much intelligence as possible for the base stats of the minions, grabbing as much armor. Armor is really good. Eventually, if you manage to get enough nodes, you can grab this 36% bleed duration. We are a bleed build. The only problem is I just don't have enough points for it, because I was trying to make myself tanky so that I don't die, and we get plenty of duration from our chest, from our Valor's Chalice, our Blood of the Exile. So I didn't feel like as though we needed this extra duration for the damage, as I felt like I did plenty of damage. Then Lich here, grabbing the bleed chance global is great, grabbing the HP here is great, and getting Hollow Lich specifically. This in combination with the Necromancer node here, River of Bones, this actually ends up giving us like 200% increased damage for free. It's just we can't use Leech, but that's fine because we have other ways of sustaining HP. Then for Warlock here, we just care about Bleed Overload, which gives us 15% more damage against moving enemies and bosses. That does stack on top of Bloody the Exile, which is cool. Then, of course, Crimson Favor here for extra blood cast. This is actually mandatory for the build, because if you don't know, the node here, Rip Blood on Curse on timeout, this cannot apply Bone Curse again with like Cursed Limbs, but you can apply it with the little Bone Curse here. So like I can show you. So as you can tell, I'm reapplying the Bone Curse there with specifically Crimson Favors. So this is important because of that, right? So that's good. Then for Necromancer here, stereotypical Necromancer setup, HP here, the 8 minion HP here, the extra skeletons here, HP here, get all that HP possible. The cast speed's really nice for making our animations faster. And of course, I grab a little bit of resistance to cap my resistances. And that's pretty much it for the passive tree that's important. Why are we a Necromancer? Simply put, skill specialization slots. You're just running out of them. I could not play a Lich with this build because you would need Deathsteel and Reperform to play a good Lich build, and I refuse to play any Lich build without these two, as these are mandatory in my humble opinion. So of course, I wasn't able to actually play a Lich build with this. And for Warlock, you actually lose like one skeleton here, and you lose one skeleton here. So it's just better this way, playing a Necromancer. Also, Dreadshade is really, really, really strong. But yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much it for that. Now, let's talk about gearing, shall we? So helmet here, I'm running a +4 to Rip Blood. Like I said, this isn't mandatory, it's just convenient. Technically, you can get more damage if you want a different route. Bleed chance is great. The global bleed chance is always great. Get up to like 500% global bleed chance. We hit 999 stacks very easily. Amulet here, crit multi, damage over time, HP. We're running Salt the Wound. As you can tell, there's a very large amount of damage that we're getting from our Salt the Wound, right? Weapon here, bleed chance, damage over time, bleed chance, which is great. Chest here, this is a best in slot chest. I'm so happy I rolled this. This is insane. Obviously, the modifiers could be higher, but I'm pretty happy with it. Shield here, Flayer's Pride. Instead of that Fizz percent, you could have minion health, but I didn't roll it. Then here, intelligence instead of that fizz percent, but otherwise good modifiers. Same thing here, minion health, damage over time, crit avoid. That crit avoid helped me cap my crit avoid, very nice. Being able to get a tier 7 one of these. Belt here, minion health regen, HP, cooldown recovery speed. Any amount of cooldown recovery speed is POG, because normally this says a 6-second cooldown. Now we're getting it to a 5-second cooldown, which is about, like, I think like 20% more damage or something like that, which is great. Gloves here, 2 LP Salt the Wounds right now are going for about 6 million gold, so have fun with that. I actually dropped a pretty good one here, as you can tell, really good. You don't need this technically, but it is a lot of HP, but I think a 1 LP Salt the Wound would be just fine. Then boots here, movement speed, HP, of course. This helps out a lot in moving through monoliths and stuff. Of course, it's everything that we would want in a pair of boots. Then, of course, Valor Chalice here. Instead of that strength, that could be minion health, that could be intelligence, that could be crit multi, like it could be anything else other than strength. Strength is cool and all for the percent armor, but in theory, it could be better if it was like it could be better if it was something else. Then for idols here, we want one of these. This makes it so that we apply mark for death on hit, 25% pen for free. Pretty nice, right? The rest is all HP idols, baby. You're playing an HP build, so guess what? You're using HP idols. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the build. That's pretty much it for the character. For blessings, actually, let's talk about that. You want bleed chance here, of course. Armor, resistance, and then resistance. And that's pretty much it for the character. All that being said, this has been Trent. I'll have to go do something else. Bye.